Okay, so we're diving into a collection of materials all about Theoden, King of Rohan from Tolkien's world. It looks like we're going pretty deep on his journey from a king who's under Saruman's influence all the way to the hero that we see at Helm's Deep in the Pelennor Fields. You're interested in his resilience and second chances and maybe even a touch of midlife crisis Tolkien style.
What's really fascinating here is that Theoden's transformation isn't just a plot device. It speaks to Tolkien's really deep-seated belief in the power of free will, even when you're facing this seemingly insurmountable darkness. It's as if Tolkien is telling us that even in a world dominated by these powerful forces, we can always choose to reclaim our own agency.
That's an interesting point. To understand this transformation, we kind of need to understand Theoden before his fall. He's not just some random king, is he?
No, not at all. He is the king of Rohan. They're renowned for their horsemen, their warriors. Think of them as the horse lords of Middle-earth. And their land is strategically vital, a buffer between the forces of evil and the rest of the free peoples.
Especially in the fight against Sauron.
Especially in the fight against Sauron, yeah.
So if Rohan falls,
Yeah.
the rest of Middle-earth is in deep trouble.
Exactly. Their location, their military prowess all make them a crucial ally. And that's where Theoden's relationships really come into play. He's connected to Gandalf, to Aragorn, even to Saruman in ways that really shape his journey and his eventual transformation.
Okay, I'm already seeing how this is all connected. But things go downhill pretty fast for Theoden, right?
Yeah.
He seems to just become a completely different person.
Yeah, he does. We see Theoden at his lowest point when he's under Grima Wormtongue's influence. And Grima Wormtongue is essentially Saruman's agent. Tolkien uses vivid imagery when he's describing Theoden's decline. He uses words like bent, withered, almost like a puppet.
Oh, with
Yeah.
its strings being pulled.
Being pulled by Grima, yeah.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that even the strongest leaders are vulnerable to these negative influences. It makes you think about real-world situations, where leaders have been swayed by bad advice or hidden agendas.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Tolkien was a veteran of World War I, so he knew firsthand the kind of devastation that manipulation and propaganda can inflict. Theoden's manipulation by Grima, I think, reflects that on a personal level.
and then Gandalf arrives. It's a pretty dramatic intervention. Gandalf confronts Grandma, breaks Saruman's hold over Theoden, and then inspires him to fight back. It's almost like a scene from an intervention, but with a wizard.
Yeah, it is. It's such a brilliant example of mentorship and strategic intervention.
Mhm.
Gandalf doesn't force Theoden to change. He guides him. He empowers him to make his own choice.
Right.
This moment really speaks to the theme of rebirth that you mentioned earlier. It's like Theoden's being woken up from a long sleep, a metaphorical midlife crisis maybe, and forced to confront his past and choose a new path.
But even though he's free from Saruman's grasp, he's still carrying the weight of past mistakes and losses, isn't he? Theoden had to have been deeply affected by those years under Saruman's influence.
Absolutely. Tolkien doesn't shy away from the complexity of Theoden's emotions. He's been through a lot. And you're right, the loss of his son Theodred weighs very heavily on him. And I think we see the depth of Theoden's character in the way he chooses to face his grief. He could give in to despair, but instead he chooses to fight.
That decision to lead Rohan into battle, despite the risks, it's a huge turning point, wouldn't you say? It shows this profound shift from passivity to courage.
Precisely. Theoden decides to rise above his grief and fight for something bigger than himself. He's no longer defined by his past, but by his willingness to fight for his people's future. And in doing so, he embodies what Tolkien often wrote about as this northern courage, a courage that's rooted in honor and duty, even in the face of death.
Could you expand on that a little bit more? What is Northern courage, and why is it so important to Theoden's character?
Yeah, so northern courage is this concept that really permeates Tolkien's work. It's a courage that's rooted in loyalty and duty and a sense of honor. It's not about being fearless, it's about facing your fears and doing what is right, even when it's really hard. Think about the Rohirrim riding into battle against these overwhelming odds at the Pelennor Fields. They know they might die, but they choose to fight anyway because they believe in something larger than themselves. That's northern courage.
I'm starting to see how Theoden embodies that ideal. It's not just about him, it's about the future of his people.
You're absolutely right. Theoden's transformation is not just about him becoming a better king. It's about him rediscovering the values at the heart of Rohan: loyalty, courage, and sacrifice. This is what ultimately makes him a hero.
Yeah, it's incredible to see how grief, in a way, kind of fuels his transformation. Theoden's decision to fight to embody Northern courage is so tied to losing his son. It's complex and a very human response. He could have retreated inward, but instead he channels this grief into this fierce determination to protect what's left of his family. His people,
Yeah, his people, yeah. Theoden's relationship with Theodred is so crucial to understanding his whole arc. It adds a layer of depth and tragedy to his character. This wasn't just some distant, aloof king. He was a father who deeply loved his son. Theodred's death at the hands of orcs is a real turning point for Theoden.
Yeah.
It forces him to confront the true cost of his inaction, of allowing Grima to poison his court.
It makes his decision to fight even more meaningful. He's not just fighting for these abstract ideals. He's fighting to honor his son's memory, to make sure that Theodred's death wasn't in vain.
Right.
And this determination leads him to Helm's Deep and Pelennor Fields, right?
Exactly. These battles become the culmination of Theoden's heroic arc. We see him in action, leading his people against these overwhelming odds. Think about his speech before the charge at the Pelennor Fields. Quote, "Arise, arise, riders of Theoden! Fell deeds awake! Fire and slaughter! Spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered, a sword day, a red day ere the sun rises. Ride now, ride now, ride! Ride for ruin and the world's ending." It's not just a rousing battle cry, it's a declaration of defiance against this darkness that has threatened to consume him and his people.
You get chills just hearing those words. It's fascinating to compare how his transformation is portrayed in the books versus the films. The movies really amp up the drama, don't they?
Oh yeah, for sure. Peter Jackson uses visuals and Bernard Hill's performance to create a much more immediate and visually striking transformation. You see Theoden at his weakest, almost lifeless before Gandalf shows up, and then boom, he's back, standing tall, his eyes blazing with defiance. It's this powerful cinematic moment that really captures his rebirth.
The music swells, the camera focuses on his face, and you can almost feel the weight lifting off his shoulders.
Yeah. It's like he's shedding these years of weariness and despair, stepping into his true power.
And that power isn't just physical, it's spiritual too. He's embracing his role as king, as protector, as the embodiment of Rohan's spirit. And I think this transformation is reflected in his relationships, especially with Gandalf and Aragorn.
Let's talk about those relationships. Gandalf seems like the archetypal wise mentor guiding Theoden back to the light. But how does Aragorn, the rightful heir to the throne of Gondor, fit into Theoden's journey?
Well, Aragorn represents hope, the promise of a brighter future. He challenges Theoden, pushes him to be a better leader, but he also supports him and fights alongside him. It's a complex relationship, one that evolves as Theoden rediscovers his own strength.
So it's like Gandalf awakens Theoden and Aragorn helps him to see what he can become.
Exactly. They each play a crucial role in his transformation. Gandalf frees him from Saruman's control. Aragorn shows him what it means to be a true king, a leader who inspires hope and courage in others.
So they're both mentors in a sense.
They are? Yeah. But they represent different aspects of leadership and kingship.
Exactly. Gandalf is the wise counselor, the voice of experience and caution. Aragorn is the warrior king, the embodiment of action and courage.
Theoden sees in Aragorn a reflection of what he could be, of what he once was. It's like Aragorn's presence reignites this spark within him, this reminder of the king that he could be.
You could even argue that Aragorn represents sort of this midlife ideal for Theoden.
Right.
He sees Aragorn's youthful vigor, his unwavering sense of purpose.
Right.
And it reminds him of the man he once was before the weight of the world kind of settled on his shoulders.
That's an interesting point. It's almost like Theoden is going through this second adolescence.
Yeah.
Rediscovering his passions and fighting for something he truly believes in.
Yeah.
And through it all, he's constantly reminded of losing Theodred.
Yeah. Theodred's death is this wound that never fully heals. But it also becomes a source of strength for Theoden.
Right.
He channels his grief into this fierce determination to protect his people, to honor his son's memory by making sure that Rohan survives.
It's a really powerful testament to the enduring nature of love and loss.
Yeah, it is.
Even in the middle of war and chaos, Theoden is driven by a father's love for his son. Theoden's story, it feels like it's about so much more than just these battles and political intrigue. It's like confronting your own mortality, your own failures, and somehow finding this strength to overcome them. It's something we can all relate to, even if we're not fighting orcs and ring wraiths every day.
Yeah, exactly. Theoden's transformation, it resonates with us because it really taps into these universal themes: loss, redemption, the struggle to find meaning in a world that can feel pretty chaotic and overwhelming.
Yeah, he reminds us that it's never too late to change, to step into our true selves.
Okay.
But let's get back to something you touched on earlier. You mentioned northern courage and how it plays such a central role in Theoden's character.
Yeah, it's not just about physical bravery. It's about Facing your fears, doing what you think is right, even when the odds are completely stacked against you. It's about standing up for what you believe in, even if it means sacrificing everything.
That unwavering commitment to something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
That sense of duty and honor.
And that's where Theoden's love for Rohan comes in. It's not just about ruling a kingdom, it's about protecting his people, his homeland. Think about his decision to evacuate Adoris and lead his people to Helm's Deep. He's putting their safety above his own, even if it means facing certain death.
Yeah. That's a powerful example of servant leadership. He's not clinging to power. He's willing to sacrifice everything for the greater good.
And it's a decision that's born out of love, out of that deep connection to his land and his people. You know, the Rohirrim are these pastoral people, deeply tied to the land. They're shepherds, horse breeders living in harmony with nature. Theoden really embodies that spirit, that fierce loyalty to his homeland and its people.
He's willing to lay down his life for them to fight for their future, even if it means his own destruction. That willingness to sacrifice, that selflessness, is what makes him such a compelling hero.
It's not even just about his actions on the battlefield. Think about his speeches, the way he rallies his troops, reminding them of what they're fighting for, inspiring them to find courage when they're facing these overwhelming odds.
Yeah, those speeches are so powerful. It's like he's channeling the spirit of Rohan itself.
Exactly.
That fierce determination to fight for freedom and independence.
Exactly. And that's why Theoden's story, it resonates so deeply with audiences. We see in him a reflection of our own desires, to find courage to stand up for what we believe in, to make a difference in the world. He reminds us that even when we feel lost and defeated, there's always the potential for redemption, for transformation.
He's a testament to the power of the human spirit, to overcome adversity, to find hope in the darkest of times.
Yeah, Theoden shows us that it's never too late to reclaim our purpose, to fight for what we believe in, to become the heroes of our own stories. And maybe that's the most enduring lesson of his transformation, that within each of us lies the potential for greatness, for courage, for sacrifice. We just have to find the will to unlock it.
Well, there you have it, everyone. A deep dive into Theoden, King of Rohan, a man who transformed from this despairing puppet king into a beacon of hope and defiance. We explored his struggles, his triumphs, his relationships, and those powerful themes that Tolkien wove into his character. What about you? What part of Theoden's story resonated most with you? Let us know. Until next time, keep diving deep.